I'm Trish Stevenson. I'm a firearms instructor here at 88 Tactical. I have been an instructor here for coming on 2 years in August. I teach all our women's classes. I also teach some of our co-ed classes as well.
I'm Haley Alt. I teach a lot of our youth classes here, primarily our anti-bullying, anti-abduction class, and then our youth gun safety class. I help out with our primal self-defense classes, and then getting in more to the firearms, the adult firearms classes.
What is primal self-defense?
So it's a class where we really just teach you kind of how to avoid it if you can at all costs. So mindset, awareness, de-escalation, and then if you need to, we give you some quick, easy self-defense tools to use in a pinch if you need to hopefully get away from something if it ever were to happen.
Do you have anything that inspired you to start teaching that way, or any stories of students that have said, hey, this really helped out, I had XYZ happen to me?
So I started here about 3 years ago, and I had no training at all whatsoever. Like, I didn't come from that background. I'm actually our HR manager, so I just was taking classes because it was a perk that we had of free classes, and I took the primal defense class, and when I got done with it, I was just wowed by like just how I felt. And so immediately after class, I asked our primary instructor, Sean, he's the one who's been teaching it for years, if I could just help. And so I started out coaching, and then now I'm one of the more primary people who help them with that class. And then when we branched off and we started doing our women experiences, I kind of took over the intro to self-defense. So just covering more of the mindset and awareness, and then more of the simplified version of it. But it kind of, I don't know, it was a big eye-opener for me because I didn't grow up in an environment like that. And so those were tools that I didn't have and things I didn't think about. And after taking it, I realized how lucky I got in so many situations that I could have gone completely different because I didn't know the things that they taught in that class. So it was kind of eye-opening.
Just kind of see things differently because you're looking for it.
Yep, absolutely.
The class is fantastic. I mean, especially because like all our training here starts with situational awareness, and that's like the first step in anything. And that is such, like, I push people to that all the time because that's the first thing, and it's an eye-opening class.
And then the youth class is just a simplified version of the adult primal defense class. So we touch more on bullying and anti-abduction, but it's the same, like at the core, you're doing the same fundamentals and the same drills, just at a children's level.
Yeah,
so
I think
that's why I really enjoyed teaching that one.
Yeah, I think it's really important, especially in this day and age where you have a lot of bullying, you have cyberbullying, you don't even have to be in the same situation, you have a lot of kids that are abducted and things like that. So if they're taught to look for stuff like this, they can avoid the situation, they can help their friends avoid the situation. So it's really invaluable.
Yep. If it's something we never talk about and just kind of avoid it because it's a scary topic or, sensitive, then if it happens, they have no clue how to handle it. So if we can kind of on the front end be proactive about it, God forbid it ever happens, they know what to do in the situation.
Yeah, one of the things I love about it is it really gives not only kids, but the primal part of the class gives adults permission to use their voice as a weapon. And I've seen it so many times where women especially have never actually done it and really struggle in class. And in the course of that, course of just the class itself, there's such a transformation between no, stop, and just being really uncomfortable to the point where like they really use and get people to step back and know that they can actually do that.
Oh, yeah. You'd think that we're asking them to do like physically punch somebody in the face, but it's just using their voice to something louder than a talking tone. And some people are just so like, they've never given themselves permission to do that. And so that alone, yeah, that's a huge one that you see with everybody.
Especially women are conditioned to be nice, right? To just get it over with if somebody wants to hug you or just, right? We're just conditioned not to listen to our intuition. And that class really gives you permission to listen to your intuition and take steps.
You're not being dramatic.
Exactly.
You're not, blowing it out of proportion. It's okay to set a boundary and then use your voice to enforce it.
So what do you guys see as far as people that start taking the class that are maybe more hesitant to do things like this and then really just kind of have a mindset change and just a shift in confidence to being able to use their voice and being able to defend themselves in maybe even non-physical ways? Like, how do you?
It's huge. That's why I think we push so many people to that class as a beginner, even if they've never shot before and they're just starting their training journey. You get them in that class and it's, like you said, it's like a switch. And then all of a sudden they're like, I want to be the most badass person and just go out there and start my training journey. Like they were like, oh, this is just a fun class I'm going to take on a Saturday. No big deal. And then once they're done, they're like, oh my God, I didn't think about this and this and this. And now I want to be prepared. I want to protect my family. You literally see it like midway through class. and it just flips. And that's probably the coolest part.
Or they
about
start
being in that
out of
class.
obligation, like this is a self-defense class, or I'm going because my dad's making me go. And
We
then,
always call
and
them
then
our
they-
hostages.
yes.
And then
they
our
get-
hostage in this class that was
Right.
forced to come.
then they're all in. Like they are absolutely all in, and they'll take all the classes. They'll end up in edged weapons, and then they'll start in the handgun side. And it's one of the reasons that I love.
I think they
good
realize they
launching
don't
point.
have these strengths because they've just never kind of dug below the surface and realized that there's some interest
And a lot
there.
of people get like the adrenaline from it. Like that was me after that class. Like I had so much adrenaline afterwards, and I was just like, oh my God, like you kind of search for that afterwards. You're like, I want to like keep learning and training just because it's good, but like also like it's a good adrenaline to know that you can go in and basically testing yourself on how you're going to act in these situations, because all of our training is behavioral based. So like it really tests like real life situations. That's something that people will say a lot. They're like, well, I wouldn't have done that in real life. Like if we are doing a drill and they start laughing and we'll stop them, I'm like, no, like that's a trigger. Will set somebody off. And they're like, well, I wouldn't do it in real life. It's because it's pretend. And we're like, no, this is exactly how you train, is how you're going to react in real life. And you might think that you wouldn't, but if somebody starts throwing a bunch of random things at you and making you feel uncomfortable and that nervous laughter kicks in, that's a trigger for some people that could set a guy who has a loose screw off. And so we want you to take a deep breath and like take it seriously. And so they start realizing some of their own things. We've had grown men in those classes that don't realize that they have like nervous tics or things that could be considered triggers. And so like there's so much like self-evaluation that happens in that class.
Yeah, because you're almost training people for what potential predators could look for in them that they're not looking for in themselves, because it's just their normal behavior, right? So helping them not become a victim just by that regular behavioral monitoring and things like that they're doing.
It's actually
That's
part
really
of
awesome.
class. It's actually part of what we cover in that class. Is like not looking like a victim.
Yeah, in the youth class, that's the very first thing that we talk about. We have so there's me and another instructor that teaches it, and then we have a role player, and we sit down, we do introductions with the kiddos, and then we kind of talk about what a bully is, and then what bullies target, and we have him kind of demonstrate what a bully would look like. It's a timid person, not making eye contact, slouched down, quiet voice, and then we're like, is that an easy target for somebody who is a bully? And all the kids are always like, yeah, you don't. And so we explain why you don't want to present yourself in that manner. You want to come off confident and sure of yourself, because then it's less likely for you to be a target of a bully or a predator. No different than the primal classes, where if you're sitting on your phone walking through a parking lot, a predator is going to be like, there's an easy target. But if you're up, aware of your surroundings, they're going to move on to the next person that isn't as much work to get.
What's your ultimate goal for every woman who comes through your class? Or do you have an ultimate goal for every woman that comes through your class?
It depends on the woman. I mean, it's very situational, very contextual, but overall, I would say it's having the confidence to handle a firearm safely and knowing that they're capable of handling a malfunction, doing a reload, that they can do it independently, that they can come to the range on their own, and actually enjoy it, have fun with it. So those are kind of the primary things.
Also, do you feel that women learn better in like a woman-only environment?
Some women do. I think what is more relevant is not necessarily the women's only environment, but nobody wants to come into an intimidating environment and look stupid, right? And I think men included, but men will mask it more. Women will come in and will shut down and not like ask anything. So in a women's only environment, it takes some of the intimidation factor out of it. And this is clearly an intimidating environment, even without the men in it. So in that respect, I think yes, but it really depends on the individual. There's a lot of women who have no problem asking the questions they need to ask in front of men. And it actually makes it easier for the men then to ask the questions that they want to ask, because like, again, nobody wants to look stupid. So it depends on the person, but I think it makes it easier for those who have a higher level of anxiety or have not been exposed to this to be in a more like environment. And women tend to be more forgiving in general of open-ended questions or sidetracks and things like that. And that goes a long way towards alleviating anxiety and just being able to address those openly.
And two, it probably could be like communication style, right?
Absolutely.
Like more conversational, things like that.
Yeah. And there are definitely things I say in the women's classes that I don't say in the co-ed classes.
Yeah, I understand. So what inspired you to start teaching other women to protect themselves? Was it a particular scenario? Was it that you had an interest in it, or?
To be honest, I was interested, I was training pretty hard. And it wasn't necessarily a particular incident as opposed to a person. Thea Vensiak, who is also an instructor here, asked me to be part of the pilot women's class. And then she asked me if I'd like to become an instructor. And I was probably moved to tears, like because it was something I had been considering but thought was years away. And have, since I've been doing it, I've realized something it's what I should have been doing my whole life, right? I mean, there are circumstances that led me to here that, make me better at it now. So it wasn't particularly an incident as opposed to a person. Like Thea really inspired me to be able to do this.
Like a good happenstance too. Like you were ready for the role now. And it came at the good time. That's awesome. Do you think that women face specific safety concerns that men might overlook?
I think that's an obvious yes. I mean, like we mentioned, we were talking a little bit before, there are some obvious things. Like, I don't know how many times a man thinks about where he's parking, what the lighting is like at the bank when she's going in, or when he has to park somewhere, the time of day he's getting gas, things like that. So some basic things, how far you have to walk from your car to your apartment, or whether you're in a parking garage, things like that. I think that's the obvious answer. So there's lots of things. Just, I mean, even to the point where you're walking on a sidewalk. Do you walk on the street side? Do you walk on the building side? What kind of neighborhood is it? Just being, as a woman, I think in general, you have to be more situationally aware because you're more likely to look like the victim, like we were talking about before.
And I think to kind of piggyback on that, women with children have a 3 times higher rate of partner aggression than women that do not have children. Because of that, or even just knowing that statistic, how do you guys train women to handle threats while they have their kids? Different situational awarenesses and things like that. But obviously that's different when you have like little ones in tow. You still need to be situational aware, but how does that change or come into play when you guys are actually training?
So specifically, again, everything starts with situational awareness, right? Being aware of where you're parked, what other cars are around you, specifically addressing if you're carrying a firearm, whether you have kids or not, you don't put your purse or your backpack on the side that you carry in case you have to draw. If you do have kids, have you trained one-handed shooting? Can you draw and safely, if you're holding a baby or if you have to keep kids back? It's mostly about training and running through your head what if scenarios, and not necessarily on a paranoid level, but just like, okay, I see somebody there, and okay, if I needed to get out, where are my options, either store-wise, or because a lot of times you can't safely leave an area, especially if you have kids that are not mobile or can't keep up. So it's just kind of a not being ignorant of the fact that something could happen and having a plan for it if it does. So I think the first keys are always situational awareness and mindset. Those start regardless of whether you're carrying a firearm. And then there's also non-lethal options, but it's mostly about training, because even if you're using non-lethal options, you need to know how to use it, know how to get to it, know how to make sure that you can deploy it safely without endangering your kids.
Yeah, that's something that we kind of talk about in the youth classes too, and sometimes in the primal classes, because we have a lot of moms that come in and they're like, this is great, but what do I do if I have my kid with me? And it's, we always like to compare it to, it's just like doing fire drills, like you having a plan, practicing it so that if something happens, your kids know what to do. It's not the first time this conversation's been had. You don't have to get super in depth, but like having somewhat, even like a safe word, like if I say, whatever the safe word is, you do this. If there's an older sibling and younger siblings, you take charge and you take them to safety. Or if I say, Sean Whittington, our primary instructor for the primal defense class, he always uses his kiddos as an example. It was either stay or go. If he says stay, you all stay together, and you're coming together and you're leaving together. But if he says go, then mom and son left. They called for help, and then that is how they helped. That was their job in the plan. And so whether you have young children, medium age, whatever it is, just having a plan and practicing it, just like you would a tornado drill or a fire drill or anything like that. Because if you don't practice it and it happens, then you are just acting on a whim.
And I feel like everybody does better when they have a job. Like when kids know what to do, they don't freak out, they don't get in your way when you're trying to defend them or whatever the case.
And training it, right? Like practicing it, not just saying, all right, if this happens, this is what they're going to do. And they're like, okay, mom, right? No, you actually, right. You actually have to practice it and run through the drill, because even one rep matters, right?
So we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but how do you guys address specifically confidence and mindset during your training?
For firearms, I'd say that's kind of two parts. The physical part is just being very methodical. We start just with little steps in terms of training with firearms. We do a lot of dry fire, getting somebody comfortable with working the manipulations of a firearm, locking that slide back so if somebody hands them a gun, they can do their own safety check. They can do their own 3-point safety check, that they're comfortable working the mechanisms, knowing how to fix a malfunction if they need to, knowing how to load a magazine, all the very basic steps on how to build your grip, how to stand if you're going to shoot. And we do that very methodically with an actual cadence on how to come up and shoot with dry fire, so they're completely comfortable with it before we ever put live rounds down range. The mindset part of it, and this happens more when I do like a private lesson as opposed to a class, and we have more time to individualize the lesson, is talking, depending on the individual. And I've done this with not just women, but men as well. And I think that's where the private lessons really come in handy, because again, men tend to have more ego. I mean, this is generalization, tend to have more ego. So if they're in a private lesson, they're more likely to, all right, these are the issues or the concerns I have. And I have no experience with a firearm. I'm concerned about safety, because I think men have the same concerns as women. They're just conditioned to, like, they've naturally had more exposure to guns. But for women, I've spent entire lessons where we've done mostly talking just about their anxiety level and what the things they're concerned about, and talking through about how they grew up with guns and the mindset that they're coming into it. And then so we just like listening, right? It's just being heard, where they've been dismissed before, like, oh, you're overreacting or whatever. So I found that those are the two things that happen, help not just women, but anybody who has a level of anxiety or I don't know if anticipation is the right word, but just that stress that comes with a new situation that is potentially a dangerous situation, and then all the stereotypes that go with it. And then, so just like the being very methodical with the physical aspect of it, but then just listening and talking through their concerns, their specific concerns.
So very, very step by step. Like, yeah, you've got this piece, and now we're moving on. You've got this.
Exactly. And I found that where sometimes I feel like we haven't done, like you paid for a lesson to learn to shoot, but actually, like the first lesson or two, we do very little shooting, either to get them comfortable with a handgun or just to get them in the right mindset to be like, okay. And then I always take the first shot, right? So the first bang is not theirs, right? So there's little things there, but
I think another thing is like, at least if we've ever had people who are struggling and they need to step out and kind of gather themselves, kind of reminding them of their reason that they're there. Why are you here? You want to protect your family. You want to feel more safe and confident. Reminding them of why they decided to sign up for a class and walk into 88 Tactical in the very beginning, Some people do it for fun as a hobby, or they like to go hunting or whatever it is. But a lot of the times when you have the women in the classes or in primal defense or anything, it's what's your reason for being here? And if you have anxiety or fear that you're trying to get past, remind yourself of that's why you're here. Think of your kid, think of your wife, think of whatever it is, that's the reason that you're here, and you're doing this for them so that you're more prepared and you can handle situations better for them. I think is a big one that
I have a lot of women that come in out of obligation again. They come in because there's a gun in the house that they want to be comfortable using if they need to. My favorite example is I had a woman who started private lessons and was absolutely terrified to even be in a room with a gun. There were lots of tears. We just, kind of worked through it. And by the end of it was just her third lesson, she kind of sheepishly looked over at me and she said, "Is this supposed to be fun?" And I'm like, damn right.
That's what we're looking for.
Is.
Yeah.
It's just, and getting from, that's what makes this so rewarding, is getting from the point where she was here out of obligation because she lived in a rural area, her husband was gone a lot, she felt like she needed some form of defense, to the point where, like, shooting is just fun. Like, even if you don't intend to use it for self-defense or you don't intend to carry, it's just a lot of fun. I mean, and I remind people, it is. And I tell women all the time, like, you're literally learning a new sport. You don't have to go into it intending to save the world, right? It could just be for fun, right? It could be something you're learning with friends or things like that, because I do a lot of private lessons that way, or private classes that way. But that's one of my favorite examples. And then to see her come to the range with her brand new gun and have her show me and be excited and work and watch her work malfunctions and reloads quickly. It's a super proud moment.
Very rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing like to that. One of the things I try to explain to women is we get very few opportunities to really feel empowered. And I don't know that it's necessarily something that men understand, and I don't want to presume that they don't, but I think they have more opportunities to feel that as men growing up. And women are conditioned not to, right? But there is nothing like coming off the range. Like nothing. Like the women after the first intro class that they do, never handled a gun, and they're like, "This feels good," and you can see it in their faces, and it's kind of amazing to watch.
Well, I think there's a lot of like fear and lack of information, and that's why they come in. They're like, "This thing could be really, really dangerous. I don't know anything about it." And obviously it's all over the news and stuff, and I don't want to be a statistic, or I need it to defend my family, and I live out in the bushes or whatever. And they want to know, which is a huge step to just come in and just be like, "I want to learn. I'm freaked out about it, but I still want to learn."
And they're stepping out, like, way out of their comfort zone. Like, it's one of the things, even with Primal, is they get permission. They come because my dad's making me come, right? And they're pushing a little outside their comfort zone and realize that they can. And then you're talking about that adrenaline. And then they want more of it. And then they're pushing a little more out of their comfort zone. And that's just like so good for life in general. About
a lot of the times, like you said before, they weren't given the permission to do that. So that's something that we cover in the primal class. Like, your life's worth it. If you need to injure somebody else or yell or whatever it is, like, you have permission to do that because your life is worth that. And some people aren't there. Like, some people, their mindset isn't to that level where they're willing to, if they needed to shoot somebody in self-defense or pull a knife or use pepper spray or whatever it is, because they're so conditioned to that. I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to be a bad guy. But kind of getting them to look at it in a different perspective of, your life's worth it. Your family needs you. Your kids need you. You need to give yourself permission to act when you need to. Go out and be a crazy person, but in the right situations, use it.
But that training, too, that they're going through reinforces that, so that before you have a chance to think or overthink it, you've got that muscle memory to defend yourself or to assess the situation. Or, like you were talking about, just look for things that you never thought of looking for. So assessing the situation, saying, this is going to be dangerous, I'm going to go this way, and just avoiding to have to get there in the first place.
Yeah, the best gunfighter, best problem is the one that you've avoided, right? And you don't know how many times you've done that because, right?
I think that's being in class and like kind of going over some of the things to avoid and just be cautious of when you hearing the people talk about it, like as you're saying it, and they're like, oh my God, I never thought about that. I always get gas after work on my way home when it's dark out, or I always, I just use the drive up ATM because it's quicker, or whatever it might be. They don't even realize that they're putting themselves in those dangerous situations because it's just never crossed their mind, or they've never had a scare to like make them think that way. There's so many people that come in. We've had so many like sweet old ladies and they're just like, nothing's ever happened to me in my life. Like, I don't think that it will. I'm not really worried about it. And we're like, but it's still possible. And when you are a woman or older, younger, injured, or a child, like you're so much more prone to being that victim. And so you have to kind of don't think the world's out to get you and that something's bad is lurking around every corner. But like there is potential out there. And anybody who has been a target or a victim didn't think that was going to be them, but it happens. And if you wrong place, wrong time. And so you just have to be aware of that and avoid it when you can, just in case. And so hearing the ladies or anybody in class, like after you say something like that, or you point out like a spot, they're like, oh my God, that's so stupid. I should have thought about that. The truck stops. I remember we did that women's event. I can't remember her name, but she was saying her sister takes her grandkids back and forth from here to Colorado, and they'll stop at the truck stops often at night. And she was like, I can't believe she does that. Like she got done with our class and she's like, I didn't even think about that, but it's so stupid. Why would she do that? Like it's such a dangerous place to be at night at a truck stop and on a highway. And so like seeing them have those realizations and then start to compare it to things that they're doing in life. And they're like, I'm never going to do that again. I'm going to cut that out like immediately.
And there's so many like tiny little things you can do to mitigate the exposure to danger that you don't even realize. Like I in a lot of the classes we talk about, even like if you're going through some kind of drive-through, do you put your car in park or do you keep your foot on the brake and drive, right? Because what if you had to get out of there quickly? Are you going to have the wherewithal to put it in drive and hit the gas, or can you just take your foot off the brake and start moving, right? Whether you're at an ATM or drive up fast food or whatever. Just like somebody seeing brake lights may exclude you from their checklist.
What is one of the craziest things that you guys have seen in your time being an instructor?
I don't know about craziest, but some of the things that I didn't consciously think of ahead of time was how many times I could potentially have a gun pointed at me. I catch a lot of people, well-intentioned, but new, still getting used to muzzle awareness. Yeah, right. Or just holstering without looking. Right? Just the like really wanting to holster really quickly. And I'm like, all right, we're just going to do that like safely. We're not right.
There's no reason to rush it.
Yeah. And just like people turn, like I've caught a lot of guns, right? Just before they turn, or I've kind of developed a knack for it even in some of my classes. My ladies will be like, how did you even see that coming? I'm like, well, one, I'm specifically watching for things that I'm, as I'm watching, but having guns pointed at me was not necessarily my favorite. Nothing too flagrant yet. I mean, we've, there's always that potential, but there's a lot. We go through a lot of very specific protocols. There's some things I say specifically during some of my classes that get people to think, oh, I don't want to be that person. Like I'll turn her, if we have tables, I say 3 times. Literally 3 times, and it's super awkward for everybody that I'm saying 3 times, I'm stepping in front of the line, we're not touching guns, I'm stepping in front of the line, we're not going to touch it, I'm in front of the line, we're not touching guns. And then I'll turn around and say, you'd be surprised how many times I turn around and somebody's fucking with their gun, right? And that actually gets them not to mess with their guns further, because like they don't do it intentionally, right? But that triggers to them, oh, I'm not going to be that person, right? So while I say it kind of offhand, I say it intentionally because I found that every time I say it, I'm less likely to have somebody messing with a gun.
I remember the first class that I helped second with, and I think it was either an intro or a handgun too. But I was like, oh, I got this. Like I know all the basics, and I'm not the primary teacher, so I'm just here to be an extra set of eyes, help out. And the amount of guns that got pointed out at me, I left, and I was like, I went home and I was like, you do this every day, like you don't like that doesn't stress you out? And he's like, oh, get on. We kind of it's something that like all of the instructors have just kind of accepted that you're gonna have a gun pointed at you at least once, if not plenty more. So just being on it, like Trish was saying, like you see it coming before it does. And another thing I'd say, I don't think I was teaching or helping teach the class, but I was in it. and it was just a negligent discharge. We were doing a carbine class, and we were just sitting there, weren't shooting, weren't about to shoot, just holding our guns, and the guy was just, I don't know what he did, but his finger just slipped right inside of the trigger guard and shot right into the floor. Sparks went everywhere, and some people got hit with ricochets. But we were all confused. We're like, we weren't even shooting. Like, gun should have been on safe. Like, there shouldn't have been an opportunity for that. It was just right in front of his toes too. And I think everybody was just kind of in shock with that. And it happens. Like, I know you had your holster incident too. So the NDs, those are more of like the scarier ones. And thankfully we've never had anyone like actually get like severely injured with those. But those are the ones that are just kind of, they shock you and are the ones that stand out to me, because getting a gun pointed at you has kind of just become a norm now. And it's like, okay, it happened. Like, let's add it to the tally. And, but those NDs are kind of the ones that spook you. And you're like, it makes you so much more aware when you're in a class, like watching everybody. Like, we say that everyone's a range safety officer. And like, when you are in the class, and even if the instructor is running somebody else through a drill, or he's teaching, so he's not like paying, or he or she isn't paying specific attention to a certain person, like, I'm always scanning now, and I'm like, where's your finger? What are you doing? Don't mess with that, like, until we're ready to shoot, just because those kind of, they stick with you a little bit, because you don't want the potential of, if it didn't go as well as it did, what could have happened.
Especially because a lot of them, I think, are just learning, right? They're just, even though you say hand off the trigger, they're like, oh, okay, in 2 minutes.
And it was a sweet old guy too. He felt so bad, but like, we have a rule that if you have an ND in class, like, you're done, and you come back and retake it. But at that point, like, you should put the gun down, step back, and we're done for the day. And he was a super sweet old guy, and wasn't like he was trying to do something cool with his gun or be fast or whatever. He just kind of got a little too lax, and fingers slipped inside the trigger guard, and it went off and spooked him just as bad as everyone else. So, I mean, those things happen, but they're definitely, they stick with you.
Yeah. I was hit with we actually don't allow certain holsters because of that. Because Chris and I were both involved in an incident where somebody next to me, we had a Serpa holder on and hit the floor. I got hit with, so it's officially a gunshot wound, but it was just like shrapnel, and the response was way overkill. We had like 2 ambulances and 6 cop cars, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. But yeah.
I remember being at home, and he's like, I got shot. And I'm like, what do you mean you got shot? And he's like, and then no response for 2 hours, because everybody showed up, and you're working through everything. And then he gets home, and he's like, oh yeah, there's a little piece of metal right here. And I was like, okay, you said shots.
Yeah, they pulled a chunk of metal out of my leg, but it was,
Were your wounds?
Yeah, it was it was really much ado about nothing, because it ended up being really nothing, but also very eye-opening, because it could have been, yes, it could have been very,
Keeps your safety protocol constantly on your mind, I'm sure. Do you guys have a recommendation for on-body or off-body carry for women, and why?
Always on, I feel like.
Yeah, that's so situational. I'm actually putting together a class for how to carry concealed the good, the bad, and the ugly, bra holsters, thigh holsters, corset, the whole bit. Generally, like, I am strictly almost like an inside the waistband. That's how I carry mostly. But you can't always do that, and it's not always practical. So if you're going to take the responsibility of carrying a gun, you need to train as well with how you're going to carry. So other options, so I do have a crossbody bag that I routinely carry in, but it's always on me. So I generally recommend on body, because you have to be super diligent if you've got it in a purse, and it needs to be specifically designed to carry. And you can't you can't set it in a shopping cart. You can't set it on the back of your chair, or you can't set it at the front door of a friend's house. And that's where the danger comes in there. So, like, generally recommend safest is on body. But I also understand that that's not always practical. So it's definitely a training thing. However you're going to carry, you need to train. And
you want to be able to get to it quickly. So if you have a bag, and even if you're wearing it, if you have all these extra zippers and pockets and different things you have to go through to pull it out, that's not efficient if your life's in danger. So if it's a quick one zip and you're good to go, that's a different story.
It needs to be designed for it. It needs to be in the same spot every time, and you need to practice. You can't just
like drawing from the
right. Like, if I always recommend to people, especially women, because even our waistline pants, like, I wear these tag pants versus a pair of regular jeans, and all of a sudden I'm carrying way up here. That's a very different draw than down here. So I always recommend, if you're regardless of how you're carrying. And that's a whole nother podcast. It's literally a class I'm putting together. So there's that. So I won't get too off topic. But however you're carrying, whatever you're wearing, you got to do some dry runs before you load that for the day, just to know what it's going to take for you to clear your shirt, your sweatshirt, your skirt, whatever you're wearing, because, it's hard to train you're not training in the same outfit every day. So at a minimum, you got to get some reps in before you head out for the day if you're carrying.
That's almost become kind of part of, like, when I'm shopping and I'm looking at getting things, like, does this work? Like, is this okay? It's like kind of part of the checklist. Does it look good? Does it fit? Is it comfortable? Can I draw?
What do you say to women who feel like they're not the gun type?
That's fine, right? I'm definitely not going to push. If you're carrying a gun, you have to make a conscious decision that you're ready for that kind of responsibility. So I am absolutely not going to tell you that you should be doing that, because you have to take that mental responsibility first before you ever take the physical responsibility to do it. And if you're not a gun person, you are clearly not ready for anything like that. So I would just say, hey, I'd love to show you how much fun it can be, right?
That's when that primal class really comes into play. Like, okay, let's start here, and then maybe see if that mental journey starts there and it clicks. And if not, then, maybe it's not for everybody, but it's a good stepping stone.
There are other non-lethal options. Like if they're looking for ways to defend themselves, there's pepper spray, there's, pen, even a tactical pen or a knife. I mean, knives are a whole nother thing, but like I'm never going to push a gun on somebody who's not ready to be there, because that's just irresponsible.
I've seen some people go backwards and they will be like, well, I'll start with knives. I'll take the edged weapons class. And then they realize how much more, that's way more like traumatic. Yeah. Like it's close quarters, bloody, gory. Like if you end up having to use a knife in self-defense, it's not going to be pretty, and you're probably going to get hurt in the process also. And then they're like, okay, maybe I'll start with intro to handgun and go from there. Because they realize that just because it's not a knife and it doesn't seem as scary, like the act in like actually defending yourself can be a little bit more traumatic. And so they're like, okay, maybe the gun isn't as scary as I thought it was.
Yeah, and you don't have to be a gun person to like to shoot, I guess. Maybe that's counterintuitive, but I think mostly people who are not gun people are probably just misinformed. It's more about education than anything, and you're not going to convince anybody by insisting that they're wrong or they should do it anyway. So it's more of an education thing, and like it's such a huge responsibility, even for people who are gun people, that I would never recommend somebody carry before they're ready to take the responsibility for that, because it's more than just knowing how to shoot or shooting paper. It's also the moral, tactical, all of the things that the financial responsibility that goes through. If you ever even have to draw your gun, much less use it, it can potentially change your life, and not necessarily for
every bullet that comes out of your gun.
Right, and even right, and not even, but even just drawing your gun and without using it is.
And which state you're in and what laws they have.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and it's super complicated, and it's part of what makes it kind of intimidating as well.
So, what age do you guys think that kids should start learning about firearm safety?
I would say as soon as they start showing any interest in it, and that's usually 5 or 6, sometimes earlier, sometimes later. As soon as they start showing interest, it's a good time to at least start talking about it. Don't make it a taboo topic, because then curiosity gets in them and then they go snooping, just like with Christmas presents in a closet or something like that. So start talking about it as soon as they start showing interest in it. And then our youth gun safety class starts at 7. And I think that's a great age to start being hands-on and kind of putting a little bit of that responsibility in their hands. And in that class, the parents are a huge part of it, but it's all on the kids. We tell the parents, be there for the first couple rounds and then take a step back. Let them work through malfunctions. Let them reload. Let them all the things. Let them figure it out themselves. You're giving them that opportunity. I think sometimes we have those helicopter parents that are like, well, let me do it for him. Let me do it. Let me do it. They're never going to figure it out and feel confident and learn the importance of it if you're always there doing it for them. And so we just have them step off a couple feet. You can still be there if they really need your help. You're kind of like the RSO, you're the personal RSO for them. But I think 7, long-winded answer, 7, when our class starts is a really good time. They kind of have the capacity to sit through a class, understand the the 5 safety rules and those kind of things before they step onto the range.
Do you see a particular age when it just seems to click more?
I think it depends on the kids. Like some kiddos are super into it and they're, they want to do Boy Scouts and all the Girl Scouts, all of that stuff and really get into it. And other ones, they could kind of care less. They're kind of the hostage in the class. The parent told them that they need to go and so they're there. But usually, just like with the primal classes or the anti-bullying classes, they get in it and they start shooting. And then they have like those proud moments where they hit right on target or they hit the little green through them and they're like, oh my God, I did that. And so they might not have been interested in the beginning, but by the end, they're like, that was pretty cool. Can we come back and do it again?
Yeah, I think so much of it is like anything for anybody is gauging interest, right? Because if you drag, if they're super interested and you're ignoring it, then that's probably a recipe for disaster.
Yep. Then they start trying to, branch out themselves and, ask their friends or if they're over at a friend's house and they have something and, oh, let me see it. But if you have one at home or they've asked about it and they're interested in it and you bring them to a class or something like that and they know how it works, they know it's interesting, and they've kind of seen the ins and out of it. It's not that taboo topic, or they're not going to go to their friend and be like, oh, let me see, I've never seen that before. Let's pull it out and go play with it. So you're avoiding those potential dangers.
Just like structure and educating the curiosity.
Absolutely.
That's a good idea. How do you teach students to avoid a fight before it begins?
I think it goes right back to the adult classes. It's the situational awareness and the mindset. So being able to identify that this could potentially, be a bad adult who's trying to abduct me or a bully that's coming to, hurt me, and seeing it, being aware of your surroundings and noticing it and seeing it and being able to either avoid it completely and leave the area or having the de-escalation skills to be like, this is not what I'm looking for. Like I can't help you. And then leaving and getting that. We also, I say for the adults, we give them permission to like use their voice and that it's worth it. But for kiddos, like, being able to ask for help, find a parent. Like after every single drill that we do, it's, whatever your script is that we give you, whatever the task is, but at the end, you're going to find help. You're finding an adult because that should be, whether it's a teacher or a neighbor, a trusted neighbor, a parent, whatever it is, that person can help you with your next step. So if you can do your best to get away from it, that next person can kind of help you with those next steps.
How do you teach children the seriousness of guns without scaring them?
I think it's kind of a respectful fear. Like you want them to not be scared of it, but it is a dangerous thing, and you have to treat it respectfully. Like there is, if it's not handled correctly, if you're not safe with it, there is potential dangers that come with it. But if you respect the firearm and you handle it how you're supposed to, you follow the safety rules and you take it seriously, then it mitigates a lot of the potential risks. So it just has to be, we're not trying to scare them. And if you ever touch a gun, it's going to go off and you're going to hurt somebody. Or if you ever see one, it's a bad thing. This is the potential dangers that come with it. And this is the best way to handle it so that they know that there's a danger that comes with it, but they can handle it.
I think it's all about training, right? And then having them, like when you put it in their hands, I think that's a big moment when they realize this isn't a Nerf gun. This isn't right.
I think it's a step-by-step confidence that we were talking about with the women's training too. It's like, hey, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, and you're just kind of moving your way up.
100%. And that's kind of the situations where we tell the parents, like, take a step back. We always say, you shouldn't learn how to shoot from a parent, a spouse, or like a sibling, anybody you're close with. Like, you don't want to listen to them. And so sometimes we have to tell the parents, like, take a step back, take a big step back, because the kid will do just fine. And then they'll go to set the gun down and then they'll be like, oh, no, hold on. Or they pull the trigger and the parents are jumping and getting spooked or whatever it is. And so we're like, take a step back, let them work through it, let them handle it. And then that's when I always recommend, I've seen it happen quite a few times. We recommend that the parents go and get a little bit more training and be a little bit more confident with it if their kids are going through the class and they're going to know the skills and how to handle it and kind of keep their composure under pressure, then the parents should probably take those steps if they're not already there to be able to do that also.
I've actually separated a mom, brought in 2 teenagers, and they were fine. She was losing her mind. And I was like, all right, just let me do my job. You're going to shoot over here and they're going to shoot over here, because the proximity was just making everybody uncomfortable. And unfortunately it was hard to watch, because it could have been a fantastic class for all of them, because she actually brought them in for one of their birthdays and they were having a blast. And then I saw them later in the day and the daughter was crying, and it was yeah, it was kind of disheartening. I just because the kids were doing great, but because of her anxiety, she really needed to come in, like you said, on her own and get some more confidence in her ability before she passed on that anxiety.
I feel like you see that a lot with the spouses too. Like,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
that's why like there's instructors for a reason, because we can tailor our teaching to students and how they learn and how they learn best and kind of address it case by case. But if you're learning from a spouse and they're like, this is how you do it, this is how it needs to be done, and this is, that's the way that they know how to do it, that's how they were taught, and they try and push that on you, and it might not work, and that just adds the pressure and the anxiety and the stress, and they're a spouse or somebody that you have a relationship with, so it's so easy to just get frustrated and be like, can you just shut up? And you kind of almost want to shut down and not continue with the journey. And so like even with spouses, separating them, or siblings, or whatever it is, anybody that has any type of relationship, separating them so that they're each having their individual experience. You came here to be taught by an instructor. Let that instructor kind of tailor their teaching to each person and go from there.
I get that, especially in the women's only classes. They're like, this was so much better than learning from my dad or my husband or my boyfriend. Or I routinely have men approach me and say, hey, I would love for you to do some work with my wife or girlfriend or something, because like she wants to learn, but I can't. I don't have the patience for it. And those are actually my favorite, because then a lot of times they'll come in as a couple then, and
wow them.
yeah, they outshoot them. And then, or they'll come in, they'll come in together for a private lesson for the two of them. And of course he's just there because to be, moral support. And she'll end up outshooting him because he's got all these training scars. And I'm like, I actually end up doing a lot more work with him than he expected. And he's like, I didn't know any of this. And that's I've had that quite a bit when I get couples come in together where they're just there for moral support because, they're spouse, and then they end up learning as much, which is also fun.
All right. So what's the most powerful moment you've had while teaching a young student?
I would say that there's one that like really sticks out. We had a little girl, she was probably 6, and she came with her dad. He'd never taken any classes with us. He was a new member, and so this was their first class experience with us. And we were doing one of our final drills, and she did awesome all the way through, but they kind of intensify as you go through the drills. And she, it was one of the more intense ones, and we take each person through one by one, and the instructor's with them all the way through. And she watched a couple people go through, and you could tell she was starting to get nervous and like super like timid about it. And she sat there, and I'm like, are you ready? I always ask her, are you ready? And she was like, no. And she just starts tears rolling down her face. And it was the saddest thing. And I'm like, do you want to take a break? Like, you don't have to do it if you don't want to do it. We never want to push people into things if it's outside their comfort zone to an extent. And she just looked at me and she goes, got it. And she went through and she completely blew the drill. Like, she did amazing. It was perfect. And just the cheese on her face afterwards, like she felt so confident afterwards. And Jenna, the instructor I was teaching it with, like we looked at each other and we both were like, we had tears and goosebumps. And we're like, those are those moments that are like, this is why it's important, because she was truly scared to do it. And she was like, I got it. I can do it. And she pushed through it and she did so good. And she felt so confident afterwards. So when we did our very final drill, which is much more hands-on and a lot scarier, she wasn't worried at all. She went through, she blew through it, and she went over to her dad and she's like, did you see what I did? And you could tell it was kind of an emotional thing for her to see him kind of work through that like internal battle of like, I'm scared, I don't really want to do this, but I'm going to do it. And she did an amazing job.
All right, we're going to do 5 rapid fire 1-answer questions to wrap up the interview. Favorite gun you own?
Walther PDP match.
Favorite gun you own?
Macro 365 is what I own, but I want the what Trish has.
Appendix or strong side carry?
Appendix.
Very popular. Coffee or range time, if you had to choose one?
Oh, gosh.
Range time.
Yeah, that's a hard one, but range time. Yeah, that is. Because we all run on coffee here.
Yeah.
Worst advice women get about guns?
You need to agree on this one.
You need a smaller gun.
One word to describe your teaching style?
Sarcastic.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I feel like it's a lot of them are so similar. Like I think that was something with the youth classes. I had to tone down. It's the keeping it like lighthearted and fun.
Yeah, that's actually one of the warnings I give at the beginning of my class is that sarcasm is my love language, and I will drop an expletive invariably during class at some point.
Final thoughts. Do you guys have any advice or anything like that for women or kids that want to get into this type of training, that are maybe nervous about it, or those beginning steps, they don't quite want to take the leap to taking a class? Like, what would you want to say to them?
Well, there's that. Yeah. So, like, I understand this is an intimidating environment. right? But for those of us who teach it, and even the big scary looking guys, we love to teach and we love questions. Just come in and be curious. Like, try not to be intimidated, or just like, if you're here, come see us, right? Especially if you're a woman. It's like, I understand that that's a big barrier to cross, like just coming in the building. But I promise you, everybody here loves what we do, and we love helping people and love giving them the opportunity to feel empowered and
Seeing those light bulbs turn on.
and watching the confidence. I have seen women in my classes come from like, wondering whether you should, like, recommending you should probably never pick up a gun, to being super proficient, and it's fantastic to watch.
The worst thing that happens, you come in, you give it a try, you realize it's something you don't really have an interest for, or you're not maybe quite there mentally, and then you figure out where you can start. The worst, I think, ignorance is the worst thing in the world. Like, you don't know what you don't know until, you know, you need it. Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
So just do it. Give yourself permission, come out, give it a try. Even if you're, you know, just doing research at home, like, you can start with small steps. You don't have to go wake up one day and go, I'm going to the range and I'm going to become the best shooter ever. Like, if you want to start with some research and then come in and, you know, do a non-firearm class, take the primal, kind of go through the mental journey. And then when you're ready, you're ready. And
I have one thing to add to that. Learn to shoot before you buy a gun. Don't buy a gun and then learn to shoot.
The worst thing is to be stuck with a gun that you don't even like once you've learned how to shoot.
Because you don't know what you're looking for. Like, learn to shoot before you buy a gun.
And I feel like that's a good place to talk to people about that too. Like, just starting.
We have the whole rental wall.
We get a rental wall. Come try it.
Those are like the best privates, I think, when you can go out and you pull out like 7 guns and you're like, give them all a go. And you get to see like one after another what you actually like. And more often than not, people are like, it's this one, I love this one. Yeah. And then they, even before they buy it, they can still use it and, you know, on the rental wall and for classes. So you get familiar and proficient with it before you, you know, make that commitment to whatever one.
What are we doing? All right. Come out, shoot your boyfriend.